So you want to buy in Bergen County. Well, who better to learn from than from two guys who were raised in two different parts of Bergen County? What's going on, guys? Pete here, Scott and Pete on Behind the Curtain. Scott, what's going on, brother?
What's up, man? I'm excited to talk about our individual hometowns and I guess our shared home county where we grew up. And I think this is a perfect chance to just take a break from beating buyers and sellers over the head, telling them, get out there and buy a house, get out there, sell a house. Now let's, share some knowledge on what was it like growing up in Bergen County. So I grew up in Ramsey, and Pete, you were down in Saddle Brook. So talk to me about what were some of your favorite things about growing up in Saddle Brook?
So just a little bit of a so I won't get too into it, but I actually was born in like Atlantic City, like South Jersey, but my family was from Saddle Brook. So coming up here, one of the first things was sidewalks. That was a huge thing. But we won't spend the next 10 minutes talking about sidewalks.
Move to Bergen County for the
Yeah,
sidewalk.
right.
They're sure to please.
But no, I think one of the cool things about Saddle Brook and kind of this whole area in Bergen County now, so Saddle Brook is more southern Bergen County, Ramsey is more northern Bergen County. So what was cool about Saddle Brook is we're super close to the city, and just like everything kind of all major highways intertwined. So it's great when you need to get somewhere, right? And pretty much, we still do meetings and stuff in Saddle Brook because it's easy for people to get to. One of the downsides, however, is, there's a lot of traffic in that area around rush hour. So, Saddle Brook and just even we're talking just Bergen County and Southern Bergen County as a whole. We've got Giant Stadium right there, the American Dream, all that stuff is really cool. There's just a lot of stuff to do. And I would say probably my favorite part of Bergen County is like, even though there are a lot of highways and there's a lot of congestion, we have some beautiful parks. Saddle River County Park was one we used to go to all the time, ride bikes through, and it goes all the way up to Glen Rock and Ridgewood too. So it all connects. So there's a lot of bike riding, a lot of things you can do along the way. So that's a little bit about me. What about you, man?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's cool because growing up in Bergen County, I think sometimes, right? You moved from the Atlantic County area, so you got to experience it as a kid, like the change in scenery. But I think a lot of things we took for granted, right? So you mentioned the highways. Super popular is that Route 17 thoroughfare where you drive up and down 17 and there is no lack of stores for basically anything and everything that you need. You've got freaking two malls along Route 17 before you jump onto Route 4 and you get to the Bergen County outlets and then the shops at Riverside. So you literally, I mean, it's a very mall centric. You mentioned the American Dream Mall. So Bergen County definitely has an obsession with malls and shopping. So that's pretty cool. But I also was thinking as you were talking, a lot of people describe New Jersey as a place where within 2 hours, you can kind of get to just about anything, right? Whether you want to spend a day at the beach or you want to go hiking up in the mountains, you want to get a city experience. Everything is so right there at our fingertips, and that's pretty cool. But as you were talking, I'm realizing even within Bergen County, it's so neat that it's such a diverse geography between you could drive over to Mawa and there's a horse farm. There's great hiking trails. You mentioned the county park. It's got a little bit of everything. So I think that's probably what teaser for future episodes. We're going to talk about how we moved out of Bergen County. But I do think that is a big draw for people looking to move to Bergen County. And I will also throw it back to you of neither of us had kids, but I know from speaking to clients, the schools are a big attractor piece. So talk to me a little bit about that. What was it like growing up in Saddle Brook, going to the schools there?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing I would say, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the taxes in Bergen County, right? That's a pretty common theme that the taxes are pretty high in Bergen County. But I think there's a difference between your taxes being high and for no reason, not no reason, but in Bergen County it has some of the top schools, right? And you're going to pay for that, right? One way or the other. You're either going to pay through it for through your taxes, or you're going to pay for private school. That's kind of the way I've always looked at it. I think if you're going to go to a really expensive, good school district, high tax town, and you're going to send your kids to private school. Like, to me, that just never made sense. Live somewhere a little less expensive with taxes and then send them to private school. But that's my 2 cents. No, but going to school in Saddle Brook was cool. Again, Saddle Brook was a very small town. So like we had maybe 100 kids in our class. Not even. I think we had less than 100 kids. Class of '05. Anybody's listening? Class of '05, we run deep. But it really was such a cool experience because when I grew up, I would have ended up going to high school with like thousands and thousands of kids. And just really having that small knit community was really cool. Like Saddle Brook is a really small like town. Like, people, like I think it's like 1 square mile, right? It's a very small town. Everybody in town, which at times can be not great, right? Because sometimes you just want to, run into the grocery store and run out. But when you need something, I mean, we've had bad things happen to some people that we know just throughout. And it's amazing to see the town come together and rally around those people. And even just in our own family, we've had some loss, and we've felt the support of that small town. So that has been really, really cool from my experience of growing up in Saddle Brook. Again, my grandparents were the original owners of that house. So like we're pretty deeply ingrained in that town. But yeah, so that was kind of my experience. How about you? What was it like going to school in Ramsey?
Yeah, that's pretty wild. And it's so you were mentioning that, like, had you stayed down in what, Little Lake Harbor,
Yep.
right? Like you would have been in a school.
Got some peeps in Little Lake Harbor too, so shout out to them too.
But you would have been in a school with what, thousands of kids?
Yeah, I think the entire school was like thousands of kids. But
So
yeah, it was
I
regional.
don't know for sure, but it does seem like Bergen County has that theme of like the towns and the schools are like generally smaller than even a lot of like local towns. Like I know like people in Clifton went to high school with hundreds of kids in their graduating class, and nowadays with population growth it might be up into the thousands. So similarly, I think we had like 180 kids in our graduating class. Went to school with some really smart kids in a great school where I think, going back to our general kind of conversations we've had in the past, firm believer in the idea, right? Like you're a summation of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And it's pretty cool that like some of my best friends are people that I've literally been friends with since we were 5, 6, 7 years old. And they've been by my side basically my whole life. So to have kind of friendships that were built in that small town feel, going to school, having the similar experiences, and then going off to college, but still staying really close, that was kind of invaluable, growing up. And I was also going to point out, right, I started off talking about like the malls and the mall obsession, but I will say, to the credit, some people don't love it, but
I was gonna ask you what's one thing you need to know if you're coming to Bergen County. So I know where you're going with that. So I'm gonna interrupt you. So Scott, what is one thing someone moving to Bergen County, something you would say that they should know about that's maybe a little different?
Blue laws. So those malls are all closed on Sunday. So basically, like any non-essential store is not going to be open on a Sunday. And what's kind of cool is like you referenced the traffic in the area. One of my favorite things to do is like drive around on a Sunday because like it's got this cool feel. Like I respect the idea of like people shutting down for a day and having a day where you're not the hustle and bustle. And you drive around Bergen County on the highways, you see these empty mall parking lots, and it's just like everything kind of slows to a little bit of a creep. And to me, that is something you better know about moving to Bergen County. Don't expect you're going to get that mall shopping 7 days a week, but it creates a really cool experience where I think a lot of people then tend to stay more local and just kind of, a lot of soccer and stuff like that growing up as kids playing sports. So everything just gets a little bit quieter on Sundays in Bergen County. So that's something I really appreciate.
I agree with you. And it is an important thing to note. I had clients who moved from New York, and I remember they told me they were like at Costco or something, and they had their whole cart filled, ready to go. And they got to the register and they're like, well, you can't buy this, you can't buy that, you can't buy this, can't buy that. So for someone who doesn't live in Bergen County, especially coming from the city, right, where it's just always hustle and bustle all the time, you might not really understand why that's important. But to your point, Scott, I mean, the blue law there's been a lot of conversation always do we keep it? Do we get rid of it? But I'm with you 100%. I think you need that time, that day to just shut down. It's really important. It's Sundays and like Christmas is like when it's the most quiet around here, and it's
Yeah.
actually really nice.
It's cool to see though, for sure.
It is. It is.
So I think that's kind of like a good summation. Anything else on Bergen County that we like missed out on? Something that maybe you're thinking people should know about before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the taxes, a lot of people think Bergen County, I don't even want to look in Bergen County because I can't afford the taxes. But there are certain towns that, the taxes are lower. Like Saddle Brook is one of those towns that has a lot of they have pretty low taxes relative to northern New Jersey and Bergen County. And there's some other towns, even like Paramus, although home values are pretty high in Paramus, their taxes are very, very low relative to the rest of the area. So, there's certain areas, and I think it's also a matter of like getting the most bang for your buck, right? For me, I would always say, because again, I kind of started my business in the southern Bergen County, Hasbrook Heights, Lodi, Woodridge area. And not to knock Lodi for anybody who lives or is from Lodi, right? But when you look at the taxes side by side, Lodi's taxes are high, and they're right on the border of Hasbrook Heights, who are almost comparable sometimes when you look house to house. And anybody who lives in this area would tell you they would much rather live in Hasbrook Heights over Lodi. Again, no offense to my Lodi peeps. I know I got some family from Lodi, not hating by any means. Lodi has its own special character and charm about it. But when you're looking at a dollar per dollar, I think it's just, again, the message that I would want to get out there is don't just discredit Bergen County because you think all the taxes are outrageous. Give us a call. We'll kind of point you in the right direction of some towns that are a little more reasonable when it comes to taxes.
Yeah. And shout out to Mawa for being my personal hidden gem when it comes to taxes. I've seen buyers, especially first-time home buyers, gain as much as like $50,000 to $100,000 worth of buying power just because of that low tax base. And credit to Mawa, that's really a big part of them having a lot of condos and townhouses as well as corporations in town. So they did a really good job planning out keeping the taxes low. So
love Mawa, and I think that's again and I don't want to ramble too long here, but I think it really is like that southern Bergen County. You've got more of that hustle and bustle and busier, but there, as you get more into northern Bergen County, Ramsey, Mawa, and towns like Ridgewood and Allendale and Waldwick and Wyckoff, it is more like, I don't know, peaceful, I guess. Like there is a little bit more of that.
it's more land and
Yeah, it's a little more
more
spread out.
property.
Yeah, I mean, it's more expensive areas, but it is just so. I think it's a great point how you said like New Jersey itself is diverse. But then if you look at Bergen County as a whole, it is also very diverse just within the one county. So it's kind of like a microcosm of New Jersey, which is cool.
It's good stuff. So if you're thinking of moving to Bergen County, you know who to call. Pete, Scott, till next time.
Later.